The top stories of the week with added depth and context from our team of reporters. Well, we here call it the Daily Debrief. Hello, everyone. I'm TODD QUINONES. Well, viewers like you are asking for more depth, and so here is exactly where you're going to find it. Let's jump right in.
Starting this Sunday, if you want to continue receiving unemployment assistance, DINANT is saying that now you have to prove that you're actively looking for a job. This is a change that is going to impact thousands of unemployed residents, and many right now are very confused about this new requirement. DINANT claims may take longer to complete now that claimants will have to show they're looking for a job. The requirement was waived during the pandemic, but not anymore.
The work search requirement always has been not just go take any job, but it's always been related to your own occupation, what's appropriate for your market and for your business.
There are several ways you can fulfill this requirement, like logging into employend.gov to search for jobs among a database, build or update a resume, submit a resume, or apply to an open position. DINANT Director Elisa Caferata also mentioned other ways to meet the requirement.
Using reemployment services, which may or may not be applicable, creating a resume, which could also be sort of information about your business if you're self-employed, registering with placement firms or temporary agencies, using online career tools like My Skills, My Future, creating a profile on a professional networking site, and participating in occupational networking events.
But for many recipients, this is a confusing process, especially since many will be doing this for the first time. Shannon Millen recently got a new job, but as one of the DINANT Unemployment Support Group founders, she understands the frustration and anxiety.
People have forgotten how to do it, or they're confused how to do it. And you have to be very particular when you're filling out the job search, the names, the addresses, if it's internet, in person. So what I've been telling my group is, just follow every step in that work search. That way you make sure you get all the correct information in, because they will stop your benefits for that week if you don't do it correctly or don't fill it out.
And on our website, ktnb.com, you can find more information about this work search requirements, plus links where you can register for training programs. Reporting from DINANT, ASTRID MENDEZ, 13 Action News.
Beginning Sunday, work search requirements are due for Nevadans who get unemployment benefits from the state's jobs department, known as DINANT. This applies to both UI and PUA claimants. ASTRID, to what extent do claimants need to prove that they are searching for work?
This is not an option thing for many of them. They must submit that proof. And there are different ways that they can do that, but they have to put the name, the address, the telephone, and like something that shows that they applied for an actual job there. So it is very important that everybody who's doing this, that obviously is required to submit it, that they do that, because if not, they run the risk of not getting those payments at all.
Where can they find information on how to show and how to prove that they're looking for work?
There's more information not only on our website, ktnb.com, about that, but also on employend.gov.
We previously reported that the search requirement stipulates claimants look for jobs within their industry, and some industries like conventions, they just don't have a lot of jobs right now. Has DINANT clarified at all what people should do if that applies to them?
There's a lot of confusion about who needs to fulfill this requirement and who is okay not doing it for now. And it's something that DINANT did not answer me straightforward. But I spoke with one of the supports group from Facebook that have been created because of all the questions and basically frustration that a lot of these recipients have been having trying to, go with the whole process. And one of the founders, Shannon Miller, told me that so far people who work in the convention industry and people who are part of a union can avoid this requirement right now. But obviously, if you just don't want to run the risk, just submit that starting on Sunday, so that way there's no problem with your.
And what about training programs?
Yeah, this is something very important, because a lot of people might say, hey, you know what, the jobs that I'm finding on my industry are not the best, or, I need some skills refreshment, to call like that. And there are several of those available. DINANT right now, it's offering that. It's something that, it's part of the DINANT name, Department of Employment, Training and Rehabilitation. So there are some options there, and it can go from the medical field to maybe even being a truck operator. And depending on the one that you choose, it's the time that you will need to learn those skills. So, but the option at least is there in case that not only you want to be up to date with the skills that you may need in your job industry, but also if you, in the future, you would like to change careers, at least this is a good time, especially if you're not able to find good jobs in your industry. Obviously, it will be understandable if you switch careers for sure.
Thank you, Astrid. For more on today's big story, make sure to visit ktnv.com.
And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we're talking about, just head to ktnv.com.
These kids within CCSD have been perfecting their craft for years, but after seeing some of their peers able to do in-person activities, they're wondering, why not us?
We said it together.
Being a part of Jester's Improv is a passion project for Maya Swift, a senior at Durango High School. It's an activity she looks forward to.
Doing this just made me gain more confidence in who I am myself and who I am as a performer.
They've been performing and competing virtually against other CCSD schools during the pandemic for more than 100 hours. With sports and performing arts able to come back in person, a plan was to have an in-person championship event, but they're unable to do it. It's frustrating for Swift, especially seeing football and other sports already playing.
We are pretty much closed out from being able to do what we enjoy when other people can do that just because they have that privilege of being a sport.
McKenna Higbee is a member of the golf team at Legacy High School and was hoping for a college scholarship, but she and her teammates have not been allowed to play. Girls golf still isn't on the CCSD list of sports for intramurals.
I feel like golf is that one sport that you can social distance so easily, and you are outside and you get to wear, and it's super easy to wear a mask.
CCSD says for girls golf, it's a scheduling conflict.
We rely on outside facilities to run those sports. So there is some conflict where we have right now spring sports, which is boys golf, and the girls golf season is actually at another time of the year. So that's the complexity, is we want to bring them back as soon as possible.
The district also says it made performing arts the same priority as sports for in-person events.
We've already made some allowances for the performing arts concerts to occur with spectators. So we've provided that guidance to our schools, and so that should be happening.
Swift says she started a petition to have an in-person championship event. She understands district officials have had a lot of work, but wants them to understand how much this activity means in helping them get a chance to shine outside of academics.
This is their first time being nominated for anything, with a possibility to receive feedback that they are doing well in something, and that changes a lot of things within someone.
That particular petition has already gathered more than 400 signatures, and the improv group hopes to have an event in early May. Jeremy Chen, 13 Action News.
We've seen sports and performing arts in the Las Vegas area make an in-person comeback in recent weeks for schools. Some high school football players even actually had the opportunity to do scrimmages at Allegiant Stadium recently, which is pretty neat. But a number of students in other extracurricular activities, they've been left out. They're not able to meet up in person. Jeremy, you spoke to two students from two different schools who fall into that category. One is a golfer and the other is an improv performer. What did they want to tell you?
Basically, the one word that came out of both of their mouths was frustration. And you can certainly understand the frustration because of the fact that they're seeing their fellow classmates being able to do in-person activities, go to games, playing games, compete, perform, however you want to call it, while they themselves can't in their own respective activities. And the activities that they do, whether it's improv or golf, they've been working on that craft for so many years, and they're not able to do it, especially doing it in person. With golf, you can't really do that virtually. With improv, you kind of can, but it's not necessarily ideal, as live physical performances are much preferred. So for them, they're just asking school officials, district officials, why not us, pretty much.
The district said for girls golf specifically, the reason why is because it's a scheduling conflict, but we do know, boys golf is underway. It's unfortunate, but is there any other area like this where we've seen the same sports fall under different rules?
For your team sports, they're able to accommodate, but for like very specialized sports like golf, that's where things get a little dicey because they rely so much on these golf courses that allow the athletes, CCSD athletes, to play for free. And obviously that's kind of limited as far as where they can be, because obviously high schools don't have golf courses on their campuses. They have to go an actual 18-hole golf course to do that, and that kind of severely limits the amount of places that they can possibly do it. It also just so happens right now is the time during the spring when boys golf is happening. So unfortunately, because of the kind of the scheduling conflicts, from what I understand, it's kind of girls golf is kind of left in the dust, unfortunately, because of the limited amount of space and the specialized kind of space that they need.
Do we know from school officials, like, is there any inkling as to when, just blanket statement, everybody can do their activities in person, or what needs to happen at the very least for that to be said? Next year, the proposal is, we're going to have 5 days a week in-person learning. And by that measure, it's very likely we're going to see live sports with fans allowed inside from both the home team and the road team, for example, or like live performances of concerts and everything like that. I mean, it's already happening right now. The question is, will there still be social distancing requirements or not? And based on the numbers that we're seeing from Clark County specifically, there's a possibility we might not need a social distance anymore by the time fall rolls around because of everyone getting vaccinated. But again, we'll just have to see. Thank you, Jeremy. For more on today's big story, make sure to visit ktnv.com.
And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we're talking about, just head to ktnv.com.
This will soon be a beautiful 6-foot deep pool, but construction has hit a bit of a snag.
They had found the bones Friday and forgot to mention that to us.
Matt Perkins says pool builders unearthed these backyard bones buried about 4 to 5 feet below the ground surface.
Monday morning, we woke up to the pool guy had said he was going to come check out the pool. We assumed that's normal. Wake up, he's out front with the police.
Perkins says Las Vegas police and CSI revealed the bones were too big to be human and were none of law enforcement's concern. So he got an expert to confirm the find dates back to Earth's last ice age, or about 14,000 years ago.
We had joked Friday while they had started digging that, oh great, maybe they can find a dinosaur for us and it will pay for our pool. Obviously, when they told us they had found some fossils, that was more of a shock to us, that we weren't expecting that.
What we found was when they were excavating the backyard pool is that they were cutting through ice age layers of sediment. And sure enough, they actually hit a skeleton of an animal.
Joshua Bondi is the director of research at the Nevada Science Center. He inspected the bones and believes the fossils belong to a large mammal, perhaps an ice age horse, a common creature that roamed the Mojave Desert and used nearby natural springs as a watering hole.
This animal, it's surrounded by what appears to be some partially compacted vegetation. So it probably died on the edge of a spring and then just either fell into that spring to be preserved or some other mechanism buried it quickly.
The discovery is not far from the Tule Springs fossil bed, which has seen large discoveries like mammoths before. Now Perkins wants to see if his backyard discovery can help science understand our primitive planet a bit better.
Our bigger concern was this might be something we'd love to find out what it is and preserve it if we can before we just go, concrete it up.
The discovery has gotten a lot of international attention. These bones tucked away for almost 14,000 years or so. Now experts want to figure out exactly how old they are.
These are the new clues just pulled from near the bottom of a Las Vegas pool under construction. Parts of a jaw and teeth belonging to an ice age horse up to 14,000 years old.
At that point, we started getting phone calls from newspapers, stations in San Francisco, New York. Someone from the UK and the Daily Mail called us. We were like, okay, national and now international entities are emailing us. So it's really interesting.
The discovery now capturing attention around the world. Matt Perkins says people are fascinated with the find after his pool builders spotted the bones last week.
Honestly, been amazing. Having so many people reach out, as interested in it as we are, makes us feel real good. It's something that we were really excited about, kind of nerded out about, and we're like, okay, it's going to be us and a few people, but to see it take off, so many people reaching out, wanting more information on it is just amazing.
Experts say the teeth point to a horse that likely fell into a natural spring around the last ice age and was preserved. But exactly when is hard to narrow down for now.
That's kind of the big glaring question, is exactly how old is this? Because right now we're making our age determination based upon
the ages of the rocks below and above it. And so it's kind of a sandwich of a date. So it'd be nice to actually have a date on the bones themselves.
Joshua Bondi with the Nevada Science Center says the United States Geological Survey is interested in the discovery and will likely use carbon dating to figure out exactly how old the fossils date back.
Right now, we're kicking around the idea of digging up as much as we safely can without doing too big of an impact on their property.
Bondi says the find is very rare, especially since the bones are so close and arranged in what's referred to as life position and really well preserved.
They think they have found some hair in there, things that just shouldn't be there. So it's gone from not just a fossil anymore, but how is something like this so well preserved? So geologists, other people are going to come look at it now.
Perkins's pool construction is paused for now until more can be learned about the backyard bones.
The goal here is to excavate the remaining bones as carefully as possible, preserve them and learn from them, and eventually maybe display them for other people to appreciate and learn from. Joe Bartels, 13 Action News.
And welcome back to the Daily Debrief, an in-depth look at the top stories of the week. For more details on any of the stories that we're talking about, just head to ktnv.com.
Joe, tell us a little bit more about this story. How did you find out about it, and what was found in this backyard?
Well, I found it on Twitter. There was some chatter, and I kind of got onto this. And so I asked whether they thought that we could do a story on it. Like, yeah, we're kind of scratching our heads because we're not sure exactly what we have on our hands. So the story goes like this. A couple had built a brand new home at Grand Teton in Buffalo in the north part of the valley, and they wanted to get a backyard pool. Well, the pool builders were there digging a hole, as you can imagine, for an in-ground pool. And they made a very interesting discovery. It was a set of bones that were buried about 4 to 5 feet below the surface, and they didn't know what they had. The homeowners apparently didn't find out about it until this past Monday when police were there at the home, and they're like, what the heck is going on? And it turns out police were called there by the pool builder because they didn't know if it was human remains or not. So police, CSI showed up, they looked at the bones, determined that they were not human bones, they were too big, but they were of no law enforcement concern. And the homeowners were like, well, what do we do now? And they're like, well, that's up to you. And they left. So they got a historian from the Nevada Science Center that came out, took a look at the bones, and has determined that they belong to a large mammal up to 14,000 years old that roamed Las Vegas before or just after the most recent ice age for Earth.
Did they have a determination of what exactly, was this a dinosaur? Was this a mammoth? Did they have any idea of what exactly it is, or no?
Well, they think it might be a large mammal, probably not a dinosaur, but probably more along the lines of a horse, for example, something that was more common to the area that would have used the area for a naturally occurring spring. And it's very close to Tule Spring fossil bed, which has a history of some very sizable discoveries, including mammoths before. So this area, not necessarily a stranger to these discoveries, but still a very old and I would say rather rare discovery nonetheless.
Now, in your story, you did talk about that the law says that if bones are found or fossils are found on a property, that they are the property owner's remains or fossils. Now, is there a value to these things? Are these people going to hit a big payday out of this?
Probably not, but that remains to be seen. So yeah, I learned through the course of this story that in the United States, if fossils are discovered upon a piece of property, they essentially belong to the property owner and they don't become property of the government of the United States, for example. So in this case, the homeowners really want to find out to what extent these bones have any kind of scientific value, because they really want to make sure that if it is of a scientific nature of significance, they want to be able to offer that to science to help better understand our primitive Earth and kind of give us a better understanding of the history of the area and what kind of wildlife kind of inhabited Las Vegas. So they're still in the process of doing that, likely not any kind of value, but it's certainly a cool story. They're saying what a neat thing it is to maybe have that story as a homeowner or what have you, but they're not sure what they're going to do next with it.
Now, if you do find something like this on your property, is there any steps that you should be taking other than, you know, making sure, one, that they're not human remains, that they are indeed a fossil, but if you know they are fossils, what should you do?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is, of course, like you mentioned, you want to make sure that these aren't human remains. So if you have any concerns, of course, you probably should phone authorities, run it by them, and see if they need to come out and investigate. So that'd probably be step one. Step two in this case is they started to reach out to a number of, you know, historians or museums to get kind of a better idea of how one should look into these bones. So if you do have something that's buried, maybe, you know, like these folks had 4 or 5 feet down, you might want to try and consult some sort of expert to see whether you have something of any kind of scientific value or research value for, you know, the scientific community.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Joe.
Thanks for watching the Daily Debrief on your streaming device. If you missed any part of this week's program, just hit the back button on your remote, then scroll down until you see KTNV Digital Exclusives. There you're going to find this show and also all of our dedicated streaming content. And stay tuned for more from 13 Action News after the break. And check us out anytime right here on KTNV Streaming Las Vegas News on your time.